how would you define the ideal duration for sort of leadership training? Because you talked about that, doing an offsite, getting them out of the context
Yeah.
where you can dissociate from the stress of drowning in their lack of leadership skill, which isn't their fault. It's the leader's fault or the HR's fault, whoever's responsible for training them. What would you say is sort of like an optimal or a good range in terms of the duration of a course and the results you got?
Yeah. So, I think that as leaders, you need to be lifelong leaders, learners. I think that it's our responsibility to always be trying to learn those skills. And I think it takes a long time. And like I said, I've had over 25 years of leadership experience, but I'm still learning, every day. And of course, I take that upon myself. Like, it's important to me if somebody is going to allow me to have stewardship over others and their development, then it is my responsibility to make sure that I am developing myself to be the type of leader that I need to be. But I do think there's some things you can do to jumpstart that and to give people a good foundation. Now, when I was in college and, taking business courses and working on my degrees and stuff, it was, all theoretical, and it was, it was fine reading about it, but, and you can read about all those leadership skills, but until I get put in front of another human being who reacts to things and actually have those practical situations, then it's very different experience. And so I think that once someone is put in that position to have stewardship over other people, I think that that's a good time to give them a good foundation. So, like, for me, the program that I have put together is, 2 days of, learning some of these basic foundational skills for leadership. Like I talked about, the communication, the influence, the coaching, the conflict resolution, feedback, those kinds of things that are going to help you to have that good foundation. And then you have to be able to go back and start applying those to real life situations. And then you need to have somebody that you can talk to, a mentor, a coach, somebody that you can talk to about these situations as they come up. Because again, you're dealing with human beings. And so everything that you've learned, you really don't know how other people are going to fully react to it. And so being able to get that corrective and supportive feedback as you're going along, I think that is really helpful. And like for me, a good 90 days of this back and forth. And then, I always like to finalize it with another session of, look what you've learned, look what you've been able to accomplish and been able to do over this time, and talk about some of those, wins. And then I think you're, set on your path of what's, what does the lifelong learning of this look like? And, I think that, a good 90 days to get a good foundation is really helpful. And then again, I think, taking it upon yourself to make sure that you have that continuous learning is really, really important. Oh, I think you're muted. You're good.
Awesome. So I love what you're saying. And I was just saying that I'm sort of trying to encapsulate as much as I can while listening and typing. I really loved what you said, because you were talking about, when you said lifelong, I was like, oh, I don't think she got the question. And then you kept speaking. I was like, okay, you got it. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I listen to an average of a book or so a week, and that's nothing special, because my big secret is I listen, and there's so many times I can listen where it wouldn't be safe to read.
Yeah.
So I quadrupled my book consumption as soon as I went to listening exclusively. As like, unless I have no choice, I don't read books anymore. I listen because I can do them while doing so many other things.
Yeah. I'm the exact same way, excuse me. The one thing though is I always buy the book also because I have to go just for me and how I remember things. When I have something that like really stands out to me, I have to go back and read it and outline it and write some notes next to it and physically do that because then it sticks in my brain. That's just the way that it works for me. But yeah,
Right.
we can get a lot done by listening.
Right. A strategy that I use that's related to that, because what you're talking about is really deep level processing. That is not just hearing the information and regurgitating. I always tell my students, understand, don't memorize.
Yes.
That is, if you can meaningfully reflect on and or better yet, apply what you've just learned, then you don't have to sit there and memorize. Memorization is superficial and largely useless because it's like, I can hold a screwdriver like a hammer, but it's going to be terribly unsuccessful at hammering nails.
Yes.
And a hammer is pretty damn useless at driving a screwdriver. So I totally agree. I want to share this with you just because it's relevant. Another thing you can do if you have time and availability, because I don't do what you do, though the deep level processing is totally valid from that whole neuroscience thing, is pause your book, speech to text, put notes on the audiobook is one more. And then that also gives you the opportunity to loop back to that section later.
I love that. That's really great. Yeah.
So it's
great.
like,
I love
pause, bookmark, take note, blah,
Yes.
blah, 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 blah. Even if it's not perfect, you've marked that part.
Yeah.
And because you're putting in the additional effort, there's an inverse relationship between the effort you put into something and the amount of it that you absorb and understand. So of course, to understand something more deeply takes more effort. If it was effortless, then you forget it.
Yes. I love it. Great tip, Tim. Thanks.
Oh, you're very welcome. Just in case you hadn't guessed, I am also a lifelong learner. I've kind of got it scheduled. The day after I'm dead, I'll stop learning. That's pretty much it.
That's my plan too.
I love that you talked about the idea of two things that were really resonated with me, and that was one, a 2-day offsite. I assume you mean 2-day, because I think you mean offsite from what you previously said, yeah?
Yep.
Intensive 2-day offsite with 90 days of ongoing support as needed.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. The reason this is sort of ironic is, I'm thinking about building a course, and, knowing a good number is obviously useful, especially an empirically derived number.
Yeah.
But where my heart really lies, because I am a teacher and lifelong learner, is that ongoing component. So it was like, oh, so that directs exactly into what I'm aspiring to do, which is a mastermind, because again, when we dump the cookie cutter, no matter how well we understand those principles, say the principles of influence, since you mentioned them from Robert Cialdini, reading the book and understanding it deeply has nothing to do with, in this situation, how can I ethically persuade or inspire someone to do X? And then having outside perspectives, ideally multiple outside perspectives, to say, have you thought about this? Because I guarantee you someone will have something, either a new perspective that you've been down that path, but you didn't think of that, or it was like, why didn't I think of it? And I can attest to this really well in one way. This whole idea of doing these interviews, as obvious as it was, came from an outside person because I was too close to it. It was like, here's 2 things you need to do right now to move forward as to what you're doing. And I'm so excited about it because I'm social. So this is actually really fits with me. Okay, so the next one is this.